Most people who hear about atmospheric electricity harvesting make the same mistake. They think bigger is always better. They see diagrams of tall antennas or elaborate ground arrays, and they assume you need a technical degree, a permit, and thousands of dollars to capture even a tiny amount of usable power. And that right there is exactly what keeps most retirees on a fixed income from ever trying it in the first place. But here is what the antenna enthusiasts won't tell you. The real power isn't hiding in the sky directly above your roofline. It's hiding in the electrical potential that sits between two completely different earth conditions right beneath your feet, and you can harvest it with materials so simple, so cheap, and so ordinary that you probably have half of them in your garage right now. This is not about Benjamin Franklin's kite or Tesla's towers. This isn't even about pulling lightning from thunderstorms. That's the trap. That's the flashy story that gets the attention, but it's not practical for someone living on Social Security who doesn't want their homeowner's insurance to skyrocket, or the county building inspector showing up on a Saturday morning asking questions. What we're talking about today is something quieter, something far more reliable, and something that has been documented and tested for over a century by farmers, experimenters, and rural homeowners who simply couldn't afford municipal power. In the 1890s and early 1900s, before the power grid reached most of rural America, people needed electricity. Light bulbs existed, telegraph stations needed power, fence chargers needed juice. And a lot of these people, farmers especially, discovered something that's been largely forgotten in an age of solar panels and battery backups. They found that by driving two dissimilar metal rods deep into the ground at different distances from their home and connecting them with a simple wire loop on the surface, they could generate a weak but steady electrical current. Not from the sky, not from the sun, from the earth itself. Now, before you dismiss this as pseudoscience or free energy nonsense, stop. This isn't magic. This isn't perpetual motion. This is a real electrochemical gradient called galvanic potential, and it's the same principle that makes a battery work. A battery has two different metals separated by an electrolyte. Your soil, especially if it has moisture and mineral content, acts as the electrolyte. Two different metals, say copper and zinc, or iron and copper, separated by distance in that soil, create a voltage difference. And where there's voltage difference, there's potential for current flow. The difference is tiny. We're talking a few tenths of a volt per pair of rods, but it is measurable and real. A voltmeter will detect it, a sensitive circuit can use it, and most importantly, it doesn't depend on weather, time of day, or season. Your backyard is generating this potential right now, at this exact moment, whether it's a blizzard outside or a clear summer night. Here's what makes this different from every solar panel or battery bank conversation you've ever had. Solar requires sun. Batteries require charging. Generators require fuel or manual effort. But earth potential? It just exists. It's always there. And for someone on a fixed income who's already paid off their house, who wants to add a backup power trickle without adding $1 raise $5,000 in equipment costs, this is where the real opportunity lives. Now, I can see the objection forming already. You're thinking, if this works so well, why isn't everyone doing it? Why isn't my power company panicked about it? And that's the right instinct. You should ask that question. The answer has three parts. First, the power output is genuinely small. We're not talking about running your air conditioning or your entire home. We're talking microwatts to milliwatts, enough to trickle charge a battery bank, to power a small LED array, to run a water monitoring sensor, to keep a backup radio alive. If you want to eliminate your entire power bill with this method alone, you're going to be disappointed. This isn't a silver bullet. Second, most people simply don't know about it. The general public's understanding of free energy from the earth has been so poisoned by decades of pseudoscience YouTube videos, snake oil salesmen, and overblown claims that legitimate techniques get lumped in with perpetual motion machines and scams. Mainstream media won't touch it. Universities don't teach it in intro physics anymore, and utility companies certainly aren't going to advertise it. So it just fades away from collective memory. Third, and this matters if you're over 60 and have lived through a lifetime of energy independence movements, the scale is too small to be profitable for a corporation. A power company makes money from volume. They need to install systems that generate meaningful electricity to whole neighborhoods, not whisper-level power that barely moves a needle on a meter. For them, this is noise, not worth the regulatory hassle, not worth the liability conversation. But here's what makes it perfect for you. You don't need profitable. You don't need to run the washing machine. You need to keep the coffee maker working when the grid goes down. You need to charge your phone. You need to run a security light. You need to keep the sump pump from flooding your basement during a storm. You need backup power that costs almost nothing and requires almost no maintenance. The Earth battery system we're building today costs less than $30 if you do it right. It uses 5 materials. 4 of them you can buy at any hardware store or order on Amazon for under $2 each. The fifth, the copper wire, you probably have already if you've done any electrical work around your house. And once it's installed, buried in your yard, connected to a small circuit, it will sit there for years, generating its tiny, steady trickle of power. Rain or shine, summer or winter, while you sleep, while you're at the beach, while you're helping your grandkids. It doesn't ask for attention. Now, let me be absolutely clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not going to replace your power bill. If your electric bill is $300 a month, this system will not cut it to zero. But if you're looking to squeeze another 6 months or a year out of a 12-volt battery bank, a battery that you use for blackout readiness, for camping equipment, for a small backup fridge or radio, then this technique becomes part of your energy independence strategy. It becomes the thing that keeps that battery topped up without you having to plug it into the wall every week. Some of you watching this video are probably familiar with ground-based antennas from the shortwave radio days. If you've ever built an antenna that goes into the dirt, you know the principle. But earth batteries are different. They're not about capturing electromagnetic waves. They're about capturing the electrochemical gradient that naturally exists in soil. And if you've never heard of this before, that's not your fault. This knowledge got sidelined. In the 1920s and 1930s, when rural electrification was still decades away in many parts of America, experimenters and farmers published plans for earth batteries in agricultural magazines and radio hobbyist journals. They called them different things: telluric batteries, earth batteries, ground batteries. The designs varied slightly, but the principle never changed. You drive two different metals into wet soil, you create a voltage potential, and you can extract current from that potential if you know how to do it gently. Some systems were elaborate. People built massive ground arrays with multiple rod pairs, trying to maximize output for their whole homestead. But the simplest versions, the ones that actually worked consistently and didn't require constant tinkering, were always the bare bones designs. Two rods, one wire connecting them, one simple circuit board to regulate the power flow. By the 1970s, this whole body of knowledge had nearly vanished. The power grid had won. Rural electrification was complete. Everyone had access to cheap, abundant electricity from the wall. There was no reason to remember how to pull power from dirt. And so it was forgotten, filed away in library microfiche, stuck in old magazines in attics, lost to history. Then something changed. Rolling blackouts came back. Climate events got wilder, and suddenly, people over 60 started remembering stories their grandparents told. Stories about making do, about not depending on systems that could fail you, about having a backup plan that lived outside the infrastructure you rent access to. That's the real reason you're going to build this weekend. Not because you believe it's going to power your whole house. Not because you're expecting to stick it to the power company, but because you're the kind of person who has always taken responsibility for your own security. You fixed your own roof, you maintained your own property, you didn't wait for someone else to solve your problems, and this is just the next logical step in that tradition. The materials you'll need are one copper rod or copper pipe, about 12 to 18 inches long, one zinc rod or galvanized steel rod, the same length, one spool of plain insulated copper wire, nothing fancy, two plastic containers, something like old plastic storage bins or even large PVC pipes cut in half, and one length of PVC pipe, maybe 4 inches in diameter, to house the rods vertically. The cost breakdown: copper rod, about $5 depending on length. Zinc rod, about $4. Copper wire, if you don't have it already, about $3 for a small spool. Plastic containers, free or $1 if you buy new. PVC pipe, you might have scraps, or about $2. So you're in for under $20 if you buy everything brand new. The other thing you'll need is a location in your yard. You want somewhere with decent soil, not pure sand, which doesn't hold moisture, and not pure clay, which can get waterlogged. A spot under a garden bed is ideal. A corner of the yard that doesn't get used for much is perfect. You need about 2 feet of clearance to drive the rods down, and you want them separated by at least 3 to 4 feet from each other. The greater the separation distance, the larger the voltage potential between them. Now here's the part where most DIY energy videos get it wrong. They tell you to bury massive ground arrays or build elaborate capacitor banks or wire everything in series to boost voltage. And then when people build those systems, they get frustrated because the power output is too small to matter, or the system requires constant maintenance, or it corrodes and stops working. The secret that the old farmers knew was simplicity. A simple system works. A simple system keeps working. A complex system breaks, and then you're spending money you don't have fixing it. So here's what you're actually going to build. You're going to drill a hole in the bottom of your plastic container. Doesn't need to be fancy. An 1.5 inch hole works fine. You're going to insert your PVC pipe through that hole so it stands upright inside the container. The PVC pipe is your housing. Inside it, you're going to slide both your copper rod and your zinc rod vertically, suspended, so they don't touch each other, but they're both touching the soil. Once both rods are in place, you're going to fill that container with soil from your yard. Plain, regular garden soil, just like you'd use for planting. The soil is your electrolyte. It's the conductor that creates the chemical reaction between the copper and zinc. And moisture is your friend here. The more moisture in the soil, the better the conductivity. Some people add a little water, a little bit of salt, or a little bit of compost to increase conductivity. But it's not necessary. Your yard soil probably already has enough mineral content and moisture. Now you run a wire from the copper rod and a separate wire from the zinc rod. These wires come up and out of the container. The zinc wire is your negative terminal. The copper wire is your positive terminal. From there, you connect them to your circuit regulator, and this is important, not directly to your battery, but through a small circuit board that prevents back current and regulates voltage. You can buy a basic charge controller for $15 to $30 online. Or if you're the type who still has electronics from the 80s and 90s lying around, you might have something that can work. The job of the controller is simple. It takes the tiny voltage from the earth battery and makes sure it flows in one direction only. And it prevents your battery from draining back into the earth battery when the voltage difference drops. Once that's connected, the whole thing just sits there. The container can go in your garden, under a shed, against your fence, anywhere you have open ground. It doesn't need to be visible. It doesn't need to be checked on. Rain feeds it water, which improves conductivity. Seasonal temperature changes don't really affect it. And the soil around it slowly becomes more conductive over time as microorganisms break down organic matter and create more mineral content. What you'll get out of this, realistically, is somewhere between 50 and 200 milliamps on a sunny day, when the soil is moist and the temperature is moderate. That doesn't sound like much until you do the math. 100 milliamps at 0.5 volts is 50 milliwatts continuous. That's 50 milliwatt hours per hour. Times 24 hours, that's 1.2 watt hours per day. Not game-changing if you're running a refrigerator. But if you're using it to float charge a 12-volt lithium battery bank, you're looking at adding charge to that battery every single day without plugging anything in. Over a month, that 100 milliamps adds up to 36 watt hours. Over a year, that's about 13 kilowatt hours. That's enough to run a small LED light panel for an hour a day, every single day, for a year, without needing external power. Is that going to change your life? No. Is that going to eliminate your power bill? No. But is it going to give you one more layer of independence? Is it going to be a small but real backup power source that requires almost zero maintenance? Yes, absolutely. And for someone on a fixed income who wants to take back even a fraction of control over their energy destiny, that matters. There's something psychologically important about this too, and I think you know what I mean. When you build something yourself, when you understand how it works, when you watch it generating power from absolutely nothing but materials you can touch and soil beneath your feet, you feel different about your energy security. You're not helpless. You're not at the mercy of rate increases and rolling blackouts. You have skin in the game. The old farmers understood this. When the power grid was decades away, they had to be creative. They had to understand the fundamentals of energy in a way that most people today have completely lost. They knew that energy wasn't just something you plugged into. It was something that existed all around you in forms you could learn to harvest. Now I want to address the elephant in the room. There are people online who claim earth batteries can generate unlimited power, or kilowatts of continuous electricity, or that they can power your whole house. Those people are either selling you something or they don't understand the physics. The voltage potential from an earth battery is real. The current is real, but it is genuinely small. The laws of thermodynamics don't break down in your backyard just because you watched a YouTube video that convinced you they do. What you're actually working with is electrochemical potential. Two different metals in an electrolyte. Copper and zinc naturally want to donate and accept electrons at different rates. That preference, that's your power source. And while it's real and measurable, it's also bounded by the laws of chemistry. You can't squeeze more power out of the system than the chemical potential allows, but you can build multiple systems. You can optimize soil moisture and mineral content, and you can wire multiple earth batteries in series to boost voltage or in parallel to boost current, if you understand what you're doing. For a beginner though, for someone building their first system this weekend, a single 2-rod earth battery is the right place to start. Build it, test it, live with it for a few weeks, understand how it behaves in different seasons. Then, if you want, you build a second one, or a third, and you experiment with different configurations. The reason you might want multiple systems is because of the rod spacing and soil conductivity variables. 2 rods that are 3 feet apart might generate a different voltage than 2 rods that are 10 feet apart. Soil that's rich in minerals might outperform sandy soil. A rod pair installed near tree roots might perform differently than one in open ground. By building 2 or 3 systems and monitoring them, you're doing what the old experimenters did. You're learning the system. And this is where your guide comes in. If you want to go deeper into the science behind earth batteries, the variations in soil types, how to optimize your specific yard conditions, how to wire multiple systems together safely, and how to troubleshoot if your system isn't performing as expected, I've created a complete ebook guide that breaks all of this down in detail. You'll find it linked in the description and pinned in the comments. It includes wiring diagrams, material sourcing guides, seasonal optimization strategies, and real data from multiple earth battery installations so you can see what actual output looks like. But let's back up for a moment because I want you to understand why this particular technique is actually more reliable than most people think. The reason is that earth batteries don't depend on any moving parts, any weather patterns, or any external resources beyond what's already beneath your feet. A solar panel needs clear skies, a wind turbine needs wind, a hand crank generator needs your physical effort. An earth battery just exists. Now let's talk about longevity. How long will this thing actually last? The answer is probably longer than you do. Copper and zinc are both incredibly stable metals. They won't corrode into uselessness within decades. The plastic containers might degrade in 50 years of direct sunlight, but if you bury them or cover them, you're fine. The wire connections might eventually corrode if they're exposed to weather, but they're easy to replace. The soil in the container? It just gets better over time as organic matter breaks down and minerals accumulate. There are documented earth batteries still in operation that were installed in the 1950s and 1960s. Not theoretical batteries, not blueprints, actual systems that still generate measurable voltage and current. Some are in museums, some are on private property owned by people who forgot they had them and then rediscovered them when researching old house records. So here's what you're going to do this Saturday. You're going to spend about 90 minutes. You're going to gather materials from your garage and local hardware store. You're going to dig a hole if you need to, or find a good location in your yard or garden. You're going to assemble the container, position the rods, fill it with soil, and run the wires to your charge controller and battery. By the time the sun sets, you're going to have a working earth battery that's generating electricity from nothing but the soil beneath your house. And on Sunday morning, when you check on it with a multimeter, you're going to see real numbers, real voltage, real current. Not much, but real. And you're going to understand something that the power company doesn't want you to understand, that you don't need their permission to start generating electricity on your own property, and you don't need their expensive equipment or their monthly bills to have backup power that works. That's what this is really about. Now, here's what happens next, and this is where most people stop thinking and start doubting themselves. They see those first numbers on the meter, they get excited, and then they ask the question that kills the whole project before it even starts. But how much power is this really generating? Is it worth my time? And that question is exactly backwards. An earth battery isn't designed to run your air conditioner or your electric stove. It's not meant to replace the grid entirely. That's not the point. What an earth battery does is generate continuous, free, silent electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without moving parts, without maintenance, without the sun, and without wind. While you sleep, it's working. While you're inside watching television, it's charging. While your power company is sending you a bill, your earth battery is sending current into your battery bank at no cost whatsoever. And that changes everything. Think about what that means for someone on a fixed income. If your earth battery generates even 50 watts continuously, that's 50 watts you're not buying from the utility company. Multiply that over a month, over a year, over 5 years of retirement. That's real money. That's money that stays in your account instead of going to a company that's been raising your rates every single year while you sit on a fixed income that never changes. But there's another benefit that most people completely miss, and it's actually more important than the power itself. An earth battery teaches you that electricity doesn't have to come from the utility company. It teaches you that your property, the ground beneath your house, is actually an energy resource, just like the roof that catches rain or the sunlight that crosses your yard. Once you build one earth battery, you start seeing your entire property differently. You start asking, where else can I generate power? Can I add solar to the garage? Can I build a hand crank generator in the shed? Can I install wind catching on the ridge? Can I combine multiple systems so that one backs up the other? That mindset shift is worth more than the first 50 watts of power. Now, let's talk about something practical that almost nobody mentions when they build their first earth battery. The size of your system matters less than the consistency of it. A small earth battery that's running right now today is infinitely more valuable than a plan to build a massive system someday. Why? Because someday never comes, but today is happening, and every day that earth battery runs, it's saving you money and proving to you that independence from the grid is possible. So here's what I recommend. Start small, build one earth battery this weekend, use PVC pipe, use copper rods, use soil from your yard, spend $30, $40, $50 maximum, get it working, check it with a multimeter, feel that sense of accomplishment when you see real voltage coming from real work that you did with your own hands. Then, next month, if it's still running and still generating, you can build a second one. Or you can add a small solar panel to complement it. Or you can install a battery bank that stores all that power for when you actually need it. The key is that you start, not tomorrow, not when you've saved up money, not when the weather is perfect, this weekend. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I've never done anything like this before. What if it doesn't work? What if I waste my money? Listen, You've already wasted far more money than $50 on utility bills that go nowhere. You've already paid for systems that the power company controls, systems that get more expensive every year, systems that you have zero say in. An Earth battery is different. It costs almost nothing. You build it yourself. You own it completely. And if it doesn't work perfectly, you still learn something that no amount of reading could teach you. Now, before you actually start building, there are a few things you need to know about your specific property. And this is where most people mess up. They build in the wrong spot, or they use the wrong soil, or they don't understand what's happening underground, and then they think the whole thing is a scam. It's not. They just didn't do the homework first. The single most important factor in Earth battery performance is soil conductivity. Some soil is rich in minerals and moisture, which means it conducts electricity better. Other soil is sandy or dry, which means it doesn't conduct as well. Before you dig anywhere on your property, you need to know what kind of soil you're actually working with. And the good news is that this test takes maybe 10 minutes, costs nothing, and gives you critical information about where to place your system. Here's the simple way to do it. Take soil samples from 3 different spots in your yard: your backyard, your side yard, maybe near your garden, or under a tree. Put each sample in a clear glass of water. Let it sit overnight. By morning, you're going to see layers. The sand settles first at the bottom. Clay settles in the middle. Organic matter and silt float on top. The soil that has more middle layer, that darker, finer material, is the one with better conductivity. That's where you want to place your Earth battery. And that's it. You just did the most important diagnostic test for your Earth battery setup without spending a penny, without calling anyone, without needing permission from anyone. You did it yourself, on your property, using your hands, and something you could find in your kitchen. That's the whole point of this. Once you know where to place it, the actual building process becomes straightforward. You're going to cut your PVC pipe to length 12 to 18 inches is usually ideal. You're going to drill holes in the bottom for drainage. You're going to bury it partially in the ground so that it's stable, but also easy to access if you need to adjust anything later. Then you're going to drop in your first copper rod, making sure it touches the moist soil at the bottom. Then your second rod, positioned away from the first one so they're not touching each other. That separation is crucial. The voltage difference between them is what creates the electrical potential that you're going to harvest. Once the rods are in position, you're going to fill the pipe with that best soil that you identified, the soil with the good conductivity. You're going to pack it down gently so it makes contact with the rods and fills all the spaces, but you're not going to compress it so hard that you cut off the moisture. Moisture is what carries the ions that create electrical flow. Without it, you have no conductivity. Then you're going to attach your wires. Use good copper wire, preferably in different colors so you can keep track of positive and negative. One wire goes to one rod, that's your positive terminal. The other wire goes to the other rod, that's your negative terminal. Twist them firmly around the rods so they don't slip off, or better yet, use small copper clips to clamp them on properly. Now here's the thing that separates someone who builds an Earth battery that works from someone who builds one that disappoints them. You have to let the system settle and hydrate before you expect it to perform at full capacity. This isn't like solar panels where you install them and immediately get full output. An Earth battery needs time. The soil needs to reach an equilibrium. The minerals need to distribute. The moisture needs to settle evenly around both rods. Give it 3 days, maybe a week. During that time, yes, it will start generating some voltage. You'll see numbers on your multimeter, but they'll be modest. Don't judge the system yet, just let it work. After a week, check it again. You should see noticeably higher voltage and better current flow. That's when you know you've got a working system. That's when you can start thinking about how to integrate it into a larger setup. And this is where it gets really interesting because an Earth battery doesn't have to stand alone. You can combine it with other systems to create something much more powerful than the sum of its parts. Let's say you build 3 Earth batteries instead of 1. You space them out across your property, one in the backyard, one near the garden, one by the side fence. You run the wires from all 3 into a simple charge controller, the same kind you'd use with a small solar panel. That controller prevents overcharging and protects your battery bank from any voltage spikes. Then the controller connects to your battery bank, which could be a simple 12-volt lithium battery, a lead-acid car battery, or even a used 1860 battery salvaged from an old solar system. Now you have 3 independent Earth batteries all feeding into one storage system. Each one is generating continuously, day and night. The sun doesn't matter. Rain actually helps because it improves soil conductivity. Snow is irrelevant. Cold is irrelevant. Your system just keeps working, quietly and steadily, storing power that you can use whenever you want. How much power could that realistically generate? A well-built Earth battery in good soil might produce anywhere from 20 to 100 watts continuously, depending on the size of your rods, the depth of your installation, and the conductivity of your soil. 3 batteries? That could be 60 to 300 watts of continuous generation. Over a day, that adds up. Over a month, that's significant. Over a year, you're talking about kilowatt hours of completely free electricity generated right under your house. For someone on a fixed income trying to reduce their power bill, that's not trivial. That's real money staying in your account instead of going to the utility company. Now, I want to be completely honest with you about something. Not everyone is going to see the same results. Your soil might be different from your neighbor's soil. Your climate affects moisture levels. The depth at which you install your batteries matters. The exact configuration of your rods matters slightly. There are variables, and those variables mean that two people building identical systems might see different outputs. But here's what I can tell you with absolute certainty. Any earth battery that's installed correctly and given time to settle will generate some measurable voltage and current. It won't be zero. It will be real. And real is what matters when you're trying to take back control of your energy costs. The deeper truth here is that an earth battery is one piece of a much larger puzzle. It's not meant to power your entire house alone, but combined with solar, combined with wind if you have it, combined with a hand-crank generator for emergencies, combined with smart load management and battery storage, an earth battery becomes part of a system that genuinely reduces your dependence on the grid. And that system is something you own completely. Nobody can shut it off. Nobody can raise its price. Nobody can tell you that you're not allowed to use it. You built it, you maintain it, you benefit from it. That's freedom. Now, if you want to go much deeper into earth battery design, installation troubleshooting, how to combine them with other systems, and how to scale this up over time, we've put together a complete guide that covers all of that in detail. You'll find it linked in the description and pinned in the comments. It walks you through everything: site selection, material sourcing, installation techniques, measuring and testing, long-term maintenance, and how to gradually expand your system over months and years without breaking your budget. Because here's what I know. You didn't spend 50 years building a life and managing your finances just to hand over control of your power to a company that doesn't care about you. You've got self-reliance in your blood. You believe in doing things yourself. You understand the value of your money. And an earth battery is exactly the kind of project that proves you still have the capability, the intelligence, and the determination to take control of your own situation. This weekend, you can start that journey. So let's talk about what comes next. You've learned the physics, you understand the principle, you've seen the materials and the basic assembly, but there's a gap between understanding something and actually building it, and that gap is where most people stop. The difference between success and failure in a project like this comes down to three things: knowing exactly where to place your battery in your yard, understanding the soil composition at your specific property, and having a clear step-by-step assembly sequence that doesn't waste materials or your time. Those details matter because your first earth battery sets the foundation for everything that comes after. You probably already know more about your land than you realize. If you've lived there for 20 or 30 years, you've seen where water pools, where things grow, where the ground stays dry in summer. That knowledge is gold when you're placing your battery terminals. It's the difference between a system that generates steady voltage and one that underperforms or fluctuates with the seasons. But here's what most people miss. The real power of an earth battery isn't in the first month or even the first year. It's in the long-term relationship between your ground and your system. Once your terminals are in place and your initial tests show solid voltage, you start noticing patterns. Summer might give you one voltage range. Winter might surprise you with something different. Spring rain refreshes the moisture levels and potentially increases conductivity. Over time, your battery becomes a subtle weather instrument. It teaches you about your own land in ways you never expected. That's when you start thinking bigger. Maybe you add a second battery in a different corner of your yard. Maybe you run two systems in series to increase voltage output. Maybe you start experimenting with the depth of your terminals or the size of your plates based on what you've learned from the first installation. These aren't leaps into the unknown. They're natural progressions based on real data from your own property. And here's something that really matters. You're building a system that gets more efficient the longer it runs. Copper doesn't corrode in earth the way it does in air. Your plates season into the soil. The electrical pathways stabilize. After 2 or 3 years, a well-maintained earth battery can be more reliable than systems you installed when they were brand new. It's the opposite of how most technology works. It improves with age. That's also why this project matters on a personal level. It's not just about cutting your power bill, though it absolutely does that. It's about proving to yourself that you can still innovate, still build, still problem solve without permission from anyone else. In a world that increasingly wants you to just passively consume and pay, an earth battery is an act of independence. You've already proven you can manage a household budget, maintain a property, understand complex utility systems, and spot when you're being taken advantage of. An earth battery is just applying those same skills to a new domain. It's not magic, it's applied physics that your generation understood from first principles before electricity became something that happened behind walls and inside black boxes. So here's my final thought before we wrap up. This weekend, you have a choice. You can watch your next utility bill arrive, feel that familiar frustration, and accept it as just another cost of living. Or you can spend a few hours gathering materials, get your hands dirty, literally, and install a system that will work for you for decades. One choice requires nothing but patience with a bad situation. The other requires just a little bit of action and a weekend of your time. The earth battery I've described in this video is the starting point. But if you really want to understand how to position it for maximum voltage, how to test it properly before connecting it to your home circuits, how to troubleshoot if your initial readings seem low, and how to plan a multi-battery expansion that covers more of your property, that's where our complete guide comes in. It's in the description and pinned in the comments, and it covers everything from soil testing kits you can buy for under $30 to advanced monitoring techniques that let you track your system's performance month by month. Because here's the reality. Most of the information I've shared today is scattered across old physics textbooks and obscure forums. Bringing it together into a step-by-step process that you can actually follow, that takes work. That takes organization. And that's what the guide does. It takes the intimidation out of this project and replaces it with clarity. Your fixed income doesn't have to mean fixed power bills. It means you get to decide which problems are worth solving and which ones you'll let someone else charge you for. An earth battery is a problem you solve once, and then it works for you year after year without asking for anything except a little seasonal attention. If you're serious about taking back control, not just this month, but for the rest of your retirement, grab the guide from the description or the pinned comment. It goes incredibly deep into everything we've covered here, plus troubleshooting steps for problems you might encounter, cost comparisons with other DIY energy systems, and a roadmap for how to expand from one battery to a network of them across your property over the next couple of years. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I know your time is valuable, probably more valuable than the power company gives it credit for. If this video resonated with you, if you felt that spark of recognition that you've got the skills to do this yourself, please subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Like this video if it's helped you see your property in a new way. Because every week I'm releasing another practical project that puts money back in your pocket and control back in your hands. You've earned that independence. Let's build it